So here are the parameters. What I want you to do is to take 3 classic works of literature, fiction books, redesign the covers, and create a set of 3 book covers. What is up, everybody? In this episode of Young Guns, we're going to take a look at the first pass of the book cover design challenge by the Young Guns. I'm super excited to see this. Now, we're doing something a little bit differently. We're doing a midpoint check-in. That way, they can incorporate any feedback that I give to them in their upcoming designs. All right, designers, the challenge starts now. Rhea, please show me what you have.
So the 3 books that I have chosen are Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. Romeo and Juliet was written in the 1500s, Pride and Prejudice was written in the 1700s, and then Lolita was written in 1900. So there's 200 years difference between each book, so it's kind of like love across the eras, which I thought would be a cool theme. From there, I went through Pinterest and I started saving different illustrations that I knew were within my ability artistically and that weren't gonna have to stretch me super far in terms of having to do a bunch of media studies and potentially even learning like a new technique. Because I have so much other work on my plate right now, I just wanted to stay relatively within my comfort zone and just be able to play and flow in that area. So I started saving illustrations that I knew I could recreate with my own twist.
Based on that, I created these 3 sketches for the first idea, which is what I'm showing you now. So I have Romeo and Juliet, which on one side you see a skull, and it's divided in half with this like star pattern in the background, and then a heart with these kind of, I was wanting to create these like halo line. Next slide, I have Pride and Prejudice. So it's like the mansion on one side and then like the humble cottage on the other. So there's this theme of trying to like show the contrast between the 2 lovers, because that's a common theme in all the books of like these very opposites attracting. And then for Lolita, I think this is my weakest idea, but it's just the thing that I came up with that felt like hadn't been done before based on the research that I had done. So it's this man's shoe on one side and then like a woman's little slip or flat on the other.
I'm gonna try to give you the best version that I can of what it means to be in art school, okay? Since this is not something you did. And so you suffer from heavy dose of imposter syndrome. So I'm going to give you a glimpse into what it's like if you had me as an instructor and if I were working with you, okay? So in this stage of the game, this would be what they would refer to as an individual critique. There's group critique and then there's individual. Individual, so we can sit here and we have a much more intimate conversation. You don't have to worry about other people seeing this at the same time. So it can be a little bit more informal, okay? So I have some questions for you. So it's a split screen and you're going to juxtapose 2 images together where the formation of the 2 images is stronger than the individual components. It's called semiotics. The juxtaposition of things make a new meaning. A plus B equals C, 1 plus 1 equals 3, right? Yeah, so the juxtaposition of the images has to be very deliberate and the sum of those images has to create a higher new meaning. So this is very important. So when we talk about conceptual thinking in terms of visual design, it has to be these kind of unexpected connections you're able to make between things. It's not just taking a circle and putting it next to another circle. So right now what I'm seeing is, okay, this is the framework, I get it, it's a split screen. On one side is a skull and the other side is a heart. I see the skull, I see the heart, the 2 together don't make any new meaning for me. Skull, heart, heart, skull, I don't know. And then I have to look at the individual elements. What does a skull mean? What does the heart mean? Like the heart is literally like the vehicle, the organ that's pumping blood through your body, but it's used not in the organ part, but just kind of in the abstraction of the heart as love. So seeing the organ part doesn't communicate love, it just means life and blood. And the skull has been famously used, I think, for, is it Macbeth, to be or not to be? That's the question. So I also don't understand what the skull is doing here. Now, what is the overall writing idea behind Romeo and Juliet? And what is this weird upside down cross thing that you have? I thought it was a sword, is it?
Upside down cross.
There's a line and then there's a line underneath.
So that's like the line that that is referencing what would be the text saying, written by William.
Oh, okay, so you're indicating text. Okay, I thought it was like a person holding a sword that they do dueling with, right? Okay.
Feeling somewhat discouraged, but okay.
Of course. You should feel discouraged because I'm a discouraging person. No, when I taught conceptual design, the students would be like basically bleeding from their eyes. These are people who are trained professionals going to the best school. Coming up with ideas is not easy. So I'm gonna hold you to that bar for now and we'll see what you come up with. So I wanna say something real quick, okay? I don't want you to feel discouraged because I said you have a personality and a certain on-screen charisma that you're like, well, now I'm screwed. That's not the way to look at it. It's like, how can you be a designer and use that in conjunction with that? Not or. Because there's a lot of people who can't capture people's attention visually on camera. And if you can do that and you can speak about design, that may be your superpower. So it's kind of interesting to me how you would hear that and say, well, now I'm discouraged. Like maybe I should get out of design. I have no place being here, right? So what you should do is train your mind to listen for things that build you up and make you stronger. The parts that don't, you just discard. So when I say to you, you actually are good on camera, you're like, huh, I could do that and this? That's how you need to think, okay? What I have to take is what I believe is to be kind of like soft putty and turn you into like iron and then sharpen you to steel. So the first thing that I say when I strike the hammer on the iron, you're like, "Blah, you've destroyed me, Chris. I'm a nobody now. I'm just a total worthless hack." That's not, no, you need to be much stronger than that, much more resolved in your conviction. Because the world will test you. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to break you, okay? So try to absorb this feedback, sketch, dream, think, research. So here's the one tip I'm gonna give to you. When you have a true understanding of the subject, the ideas come forth. When you don't, then you're just making stuff up. So really, what I would suggest you do, it's not necessarily reread all the books, but read some critical analysis, themes, use the Cliff Notes, and read the plot summary, the themes, and the conflict, and the story structure, and then reduce it down to 2 or 3 words.
Okay.
You have to know the truth, and because you're gonna be the communicator of that truth. So if you don't understand it, you're just making stuff up. And that's where most people spend their time, just making stuff up.
Got it.
Okay? All right, Rhea, I want you to be powerful, be strong, and be resolute in your ability to do this. Don't worry. The best designers that I know in the world are self-taught.
Awesome.
Meghan, what do you have?
So the 3 books that I chose were The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. So themes of women with the woman is the main character, and then themes of autonomy, themes of madness, just themes of like life. If do you want to be married or do you want to have this whole other experience on your own? Okay, so before I get started on the design, I of course start with research. So I went to SparkNotes, read up on summaries of all of the books that I chose, refreshed the major themes, the different symbols, trying to see what I can draw information from to illustrate. Also on the last project, Chris mentioned that my drawings, my package design looked really cold and clinical. And for the themes of these books, I feel like they're really emotive and expressive and dark, really. So I wanted to be sure to capture that with my book design.
I can see that you're walking on the line of an idea. I want to push you way over that line. And I'm glad to see like how far you've taken this, because the mock-ups and the comps that you've produced look really good. I just want to make sure you have a really good idea. I like that you want to have an element of a pattern or botanicals or something like that. I think there's lots that you can do with that. But right now it's more of a backdrop to what it is. It's the main idea. And I think you can work on that. So when you told me about this woman's descent into madness, is how I interpret it. And there's this conflict between the good wife and the free-spirited person who society wasn't ready to accept, and the price that she pays is madness. So there's, I think, a woman kind of huddled up in the fetal position really isn't talking about the idea. It's just kind of illustrating her and her grief or her descent into insanity. So you can think about the conflict, and the conflict could be a push and pull, it could be a tug of war, it could be letting go of reality. And so we've seen photos and illustrations that are like this, where like two hands are about to break apart and it's like barely holding on together. I want you to use metaphors and symbology. And I would encourage you strongly to look into surrealism. In particular, the work of Rene Magritte, okay? He's always gonna be my like go-to person for conceptual thinking in image making. Okay? So it doesn't matter to me at this point, because we're getting pretty close to like getting the stuff done, that you reread the books, but you need to read more analytical writing about the books and the stories and themes until you find your truth. I would love to be able to look at this book cover and see one thing, see a second read, and possibly a third read. Right now, I just see it for what it is. A woman in the fetal position. There's a woman there's some bars, but the integration of the two isn't really great. And then the one that seems the closest to the idea, which is taking something that is big, a human being, and putting it underneath like one of these glass, what is it? Waves.
A bell jar?
Yeah, bell jar. I guess that's what that's called. Then it feels like she's trapped in there. I'm just trying to do what I would do if you were in my class, and I was trying to teach you how to create communication through imagery.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay. What's that? Tell me what that.
Because now I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Okay, just start with one. Don't design for a system. Find the idea first, and then design the system around that. I'm pretty sure once you figure out the idea, the patterns and the botanical stuff can weave themselves in there.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of started opposite, like trying to think of the system first. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I just started too literal to begin with. And I knew that they were a bit cliche, but I just wanted to like get it to a point where I could get feedback to go from these ideas. But yes. I think you're right.
And what we have to do is we have to free ourselves of physical reality. A book can be as big as a building. It could be a boat. It could be a house. It could be lots of different things. And manipulate the objects in your mind to craft the meaning, the story.
So if we're gonna do, like, that is something really new for me digitally. I haven't a lot of the design work I've been doing so far has just been like logos and brand identity. So I haven't really done like an illustration before. So once you start looking at these ideas, then what's the next step to figure out what does it look like if I do that, you know?
Okay, so once you arrive at your idea, what I would try to do is sketch 3 or 5 ways of showing that same idea, okay? So you're working out composition problems right now, right? And you need it to be visually quite meaty and heavy so that people can be drawn into it. So you don't want like light details and things like that, because that does not make for a powerful image. So let's just say now we kind of have our pencil idea and we know it's going to be good. I would get photo reference, and if you don't have photo reference, I would take photographs yourself. Just have a friend, a sibling, take a picture of you, even on your iPhone works, cut them out, high contrast them, and then go through the process of either using that as a basis to do an illustration over. You can use cut paper, you can craft things, and you can make whatever it is that you want. I just didn't want you to become reliant on photography as a solution.
Okay.
So with enough good reference, we can make anything, right? Because we're literally then just tracing.
Okay.
Okay? Are you okay?
Yeah, it's just a lot of work, but it's okay.
I want you to come up with something spectacular, because the world's a stage, as they say, and you have a really great platform to expose yourself, your thinking, your process, your creativity, and your energy. And if you want job leads, if you want job opportunities, if you want clients, this is the way to do it.
Heard.
Okay. Right. Good job. I like the exploration. I like what you're thinking about. I like the honesty and how you're approaching this. I just want to push you. If you thought you were at a 10, I'm looking at you like a 5. I want you to go to a 15. Okay? Yeah, this is the art school stuff, yeah? Okay, you're doing good. So just don't you get discouraged on me. You just do this.
Okay.
Okay? All right. I will talk to you next time, okay?
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Stay strong.
All right,
Okay. Bye-bye.
bye.
Maitreyee, let's see what you have.
So from the list of books, I've chosen 3, Dracula, The Christmas Carol, and The Hobbit. I've read all these 3 books, and I think I can remember it while designing it, so my process will be to at least try and summarize the books as much as I can, make mood board sketches, and then jump onto the final design. So the major themes of the books are going to be minimalism in the main characters of the books. I am thinking of going for more of a minimalistic, simple vibe than to a detailed illustration, because I think those are the kind of books that you are most drawn to, because you see a big silhouette of something and you understand then and there what it is about. So my design process actually consists of sketching, a lot of it, references from Pinterest, Google, anywhere I can find it. And third, I will probably go to a lot of places where I can find these books and actually take photographs or go through them and get references from bookstores and libraries, so I can get a whole idea on how I can design this cover at its best, you know?
Okay. I think your process is very clear. So I have some just initial reactions and thought. First of all, thematically, they feel very linked together. It does feel like a family of books, and I can see how you can apply the system moving forward. I have some questions about conceptually, is there anything more for me to kind of unravel here? Is there an Easter egg that you're hiding inside the book cover, in the candle, in the negative shape? Is there something more there? The beauty of Ali Moss is because the negative shapes tell a different story. Like there was Batman and maybe Birdman, or the negative shape of the castle revealed an arm reaching down to get something. So that's the little thing that I'm missing here. I also, let's look at some of the Ali Moss stuff again. Let's go back.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a sensitivity to color, palette, pattern, texture that I think is really nice. And I don't want you to lose that. There's a certain amount of positive versus negative shape that's in here. And then when we look at your design, if I'm just trying to give you some feedback so you know what else to do the next time we finish, okay? Even the one that says obsessed with the hand-drawn pencil texture in the back there, it's quite nice. And the shading or the vintage feel, this kind of off-white yellow tobacco filter vibe that's going on in some of the posters or in these designs, make it look a little bit more human. So let's go to your design now. So it feels all of a sudden super digital. It's lost a little bit of that human quality, and I want you to bring that back in. It feels too much like vector art and less like a person spent time crafting all this. Okay, so let's recap here. What I would like to see is a little bit more hand done, crafted, so it feels like this is a classic story that you're going to want to buy. So the digital elements don't help you here, so I encourage you to play around with that to add some texture or something else. I think in terms of a visual system, it's working. I just want more meaning to be put into the images. Okay, you feel good about this?
Yeah, I feel good about it.
Okay, and
Yeah.
get rid of the digital edge because it cheapens the design.
Right.
Okay.
I want to make it, I'll make it more illustrative and hand-drawn type of thing, so it feels raw.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, that's all I got for you then. I think you know what you need to do. Okay, so I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with next week.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Annie, show us what you have.
So these are the 3 books that I chose.
Okay.
Catcher in the Rye, Fahrenheit 451, and The Stranger by Albert Camus.
Okay, before you move on, what's the message from each story?
So Catcher in the Rye, it's It's tough growing up, and not everyone can do it. Is that word?
All you have to do is live. What do you mean it's tough growing up?
He doesn't. So the main character.
No, don't tell me what you read. Tell me what it means. There's a difference, right? This is where a lot of people are struggling right now.
Yeah. Okay.
You can read the synopsis to me all day long, but you haven't interpreted. So is it loss of innocence? Is it what is it? You have to read between the lines, okay?
So you have to, okay, so here's the problem. If I ask you these kinds of questions you can't answer, that means the design is built on maybe not a total understanding of the story itself. Every story is trying to tell you, the viewer, the reader, something. There's a message in there. There's a conflict that needs to be resolved. That's why we're hooked into the story. When you create your work, ask somebody else to look at it and ask them to tell you what they feel or what's the idea. And chances are they will never say what it is that you're doing because you don't have yet the skills to control that yet, right? Not yet, but maybe after doing this with me, you'll get much, much closer, okay? So I got a feeling about something and I want you to feel the same thing. Let's go back to your concepts. Let's go back to the first version of it, okay? Okay, yeah, let me tell you what I feel. I see a girl standing on, or a person standing on the horizon. I don't feel anything. I don't know what that means, okay? There's a way to make that have meaning, because if that were a person standing on an eyeball, now it's something else. Or if the negative shapes in this thing represented something else, I don't know what that is just yet. And you don't want to describe all the functionality, the features. You don't want to do that. You should just get to the idea. Now, go to the next one. That's just a sidewalk. That's just a book. That's just a cross with a weird line in the middle. Well, so let me just say this, because a lot of people on the internet can be watching this like, Chris, why are you pushing the young guns so hard to come up with an idea? This is how I teach. If you want somebody else to teach you, you'll find somebody else. But this is what I would do exactly if you were in my class. I would torture your every fiber and soul until you came up with an idea. No pressure, no diamonds.
I think that's great. I had too many nice professors.
This is what nice professors get you, okay? So, at the risk of sounding like a total jerk a-hole teacher, you guys can judge me if you wish. That's totally okay, because I don't care. I'm here to help Annie. I want her to raise her conceptual thinking and really just bust out on challenge number 2. Okay, Annie? I realized in challenge 1, I let you guys run like children free into the forest, eating candy, drinking soda, and it wasn't really a learning opportunity. So all I did was critique what you did or didn't do. And then of course the natural reaction is like, I wish I got some critique. Here we are. I'm giving you a midpoint check-in. Let's do this, let's knock it out. Let's turn this into an educational, positive learning experience, okay?
Yes, gotcha.
Okay. And with that, I'm gonna say goodbye, good luck. I know you can do it. Find the idea, Annie. Find the idea. When you can spot the pattern, there's a good chance that you can do it yourself.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, that's it for me. I gotta go, so I will see you really soon. Anastasia, what are you gonna show me?
Okay, so the first book I picked is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. I picked this book because it's my all-time favorite novel, so when I saw it on the list, I knew it was gonna be it right away. The second one is Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. This is another great Russian novel, and it's another favorite of mine, but the reason I picked it is that it deals with a lot of issues that I would like to try to explore visually. And the third one is Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. This one I read not so while ago, and I remember it pretty well, and that's the main reason I picked it. But also it complements the other two pretty well, because it's another great realist novel, and it's in the same time period, and it would make a lot of sense to combine all of them in the same series. So this is my mood board, and my overall idea is to use typography to express the main themes of the book. And these are just some great references on how to do that. For example, here I really like how the type bleeds into the spine of the book and it works in more than one dimension, which I think is really cool. Or this one where the type is used to express exactly what it says on the cover. Or this one where we cannot really make out what it says at the beginning, but the more you look at it, the more it makes sense. And some of these are just great examples on how to use composition in typography, like this one or this one. I want to keep my covers mostly black and white, but with some pop of color to differentiate between different books, like here or here or here.
Let's go back out and let's look at your sketches. I really like the fact that you're really exploring typography as a solution. I think the examples that you shared in your stylescape are really smart. So the bar is quite high, and if you don't have any elements to use besides type, you have to be really good at this stuff. So almost here is literally showing you something that's almost there to read. And the book on males and females, the word sexy and sex, the XY and the XX, that makes a lot of sense. And when you go to look at your thing has to be an expression and a piece of communication that's actually really clear. So let's take a look at what you've done now. Okay, so I would encourage you to not necessarily use the same typeface for each of the books, because each book has its own character and you're going to need to find interesting typesets to communicate that. I don't think they have to be that. They could be linked through color, a grid system, something like that, okay? So don't worry about that. Now, when I look at these things, if I were to ask a person of average intelligence to tell me what each of the book covers mean, I think this is where you're going to lose, because the first one reads as GR eat expectations, because the two typefaces are different sizes and they're broken, and it's just really hard. And I really don't know what it's saying, besides that one is big, one is small. You're talking about this idea that your expectations may be bigger than reality. And so I think that to get words to be like these visual puns, you have to explore lots of different ideas, and I don't think this is the answer just yet, okay? The Leo Tolstoy, Anna Karenina, I don't know what that one's about at all.
It's about this woman who leaves her husband to be with her lover, and then eventually he stops loving her, so she kills herself.
The stories are about lots of details, but you have to boil it down to like one universal truth. What do you think either the message or the theme is of the book?
It's a little philosophical, I guess, but I think the theme is that the distance, I guess, the characters are feeling, and I guess the desperation they're all feeling, because there's like, the book kind of goes through how different characters are trying to be content and they really can't be, and it doesn't really offer any solutions. So it kind of reaches this peak where Anna kills herself. She throws herself under the train.
Oh, okay. So could this have some kind of reference to train tracks?
With your typography.
Yeah.
See, so this is like, I'm looking for just a little hint, or about suicide, or the distance between things, and separation or isolation, or it needs the bigger idea. I don't think just like breaking the typeface and boxing it in is enough for me. That's too abstract. So what you're saying, what you understand of the book, isn't translating to the visual. Okay, so let's cycle through some of your other explorations here. I like what you're doing with the great and repeating great, and it's diminishing each time. I think that's getting a little closer to an idea, and there's this implied motion to it. There's movement going from big to small. That's probably a little clearer to me. I could see that as a motion graphics piece too. And I think that's a good choice of typeface for this particular story. And then I like the typeset from the second book, but I don't know what it means again. Right? So it's nice and it's broken up. If you're saying that there's a split, there's lots of ways to communicate split besides breaking the margins of the book itself. Crime and Punishment, once again, I think it's the weakest one in terms of like your understanding and how to communicate what that book's about. So let's take a look at the last one. I like the graphic power of the first and the third layout the best. Again, Crime and Punishment is your enemy right now. So the layouts look really interesting, but you may need more text. So what you reference in the original stylescape, sometimes they use text from the first paragraph or words. You may need to bring in more type so you have something else to work with. Because if the title itself doesn't do it for you, then we have a problem. Now, in the third layout here for Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, it's a little easier to read because great is grouped with a white box, and they're the same point size as far as I can tell. But when you make it big GR and then eat, it feels like two different words, and you don't want to do that. But I'm still looking for what's the big idea on any of these things, right? So I would love, the beautiful part is once you figure out the idea, the design is actually pretty simple. You don't have to do any illustration. It's really just about the type and celebrating the type and what the type means to the user or the reader, okay? So work on that. I think some of these you might want to bring in some of the text from the story itself and work with that if you don't have enough elements to work with. All right, is there anything else you want to ask me?
No. Not really, I think so.
I'm really excited about where you're going to take this because you're the only person that I've talked to thus far that wants to do a pure typographic thing that's both good and bad. You'll be totally different, but you want to make sure it feels like I got a great idea in here. So I'm sure there's a lot of references that you can find on the internet about paper illustrations. Maybe they'll give you some ideas.
Okay.
Okay. You're welcome.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with.
Yay. I'm looking
Okay.
forward to exploring this more.
Good. Let's see what you have, Monika.
I chose Moby Dick, Romeo and Juliet, and one of my absolute favorite classical books, Bram Stoker's Dracula. These are the books that everyone should be more or less familiar with, so I feel like more people will be able to relate to the thought process and designs. I'm not really worried about the critique. I actually find it to be probably one of the most interesting parts of the assignment, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the review about the submitted artwork. However, I cannot make assumptions about what they're gonna like or not, simply because there has not been enough illustration-based content on the Future channel to base my opinion on.
So
What I would say is the big decision isn't so much in what style that you pick, but what's the strength of the idea, okay? So for Moby Dick, and in some of these things you have to be very careful because the cover is the hero. And in some of your designs, the back cover is the hero, and you don't want to do that, okay? Because if it doesn't do its job, which is draw my attention into the cover, then I'm not going to pick up the book, I'm not going to buy it, I'm not going to flip it open, I'm not going to do any of those things. So be mindful of that, okay? To me, your best idea is go down your very last image, which is, it took me a little bit to figure out what the heck you were doing there, but I'll tell you why. Yeah, because there's two ways to read this image. It could just be a guy standing on the bow of the boat and just looking into the horizon, as you said, but his head is also the eye of the whale, and these abstract shapes are actually the whale itself. What I like about this is because it's a metaphor for how obsessed he is with the whale. This is more his personal battle than it is just about killing a whale, right? So that's the problem, and it leads to his downfall, right? His obsession. So I really like that the whale is on his mind all the time, and this says something like that to me, that his head literally is part of the whale. So I would encourage you to go look at the other two, regardless of executional styles, to see what you can do for Dracula and for, what's the other story?
Romeo and Juliet.
for Romeo and Juliet.
Okay? This is the tricky part. Like, what are you gonna do? It seemed like you were clear with Moby Dick, but you weren't as clear with Dracula or Romeo and Juliet.
Honestly, like, this is exactly what I wanted to hear, so.
Okay.
I think you know what you're doing in terms of image making, so I wanna challenge you to think about your typography and to make sure that the meaning that you want to put into the imagery is there. Work on that, because I'm pretty confident you can nail the rest, right?
I feel like I can, yes.
Yeah, I
could tell that you know how to make images, so let's work on the other stuff.
Is there anything else?
Honestly, no, not really. I just really wasn't sure about the direction and how deep I had to go.
Well, great then. I don't want to take up any more of your time. You have a lot of work to do, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Take care.
You just heard me give the Young Guns feedback. Let's see what they come up with in the following weeks. Do they take the feedback to heart and try it out? Or do they say, we got this, Chris, we know what we're doing. I hope you're as excited as I am to see what they come up with.